Did you hear that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's record. 3, 2.
Okay, which podcast is this? You have a lot of them.
This is the Paul and Ashley podcast on nonpartisan evangelical.
Oh, okay. Are we recording this?
That's us.
Hey, dropping a beat.
Yes, we are.
It's Saturday.
Happy Saturday, everyone.
All right. That was
Nice.
some lovely, fun little spunky music.
Yeah, you like that?
I do like that.
Okay.
Yeah, good morning, good afternoon. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, maybe afternoon for some. Huh?
Yes, it's always, until we know who's jumping in, I never know if I can just say good morning or if I need to say good morning and good afternoon, but it's a safe bet. I see Therapies has joined, and I think it's Central Time Zone for Therapies.
I think
Central.
Rebecca is her name.
Maybe.
Where are you, Rebecca? Where in the world is Rebecca? And we always love everybody to share where you're joining us from on YouTube and TikTok. And as we were just noting before, like the monitor for YouTube is to our left, so we may always be looking over there. Ontario. Very cool.
So for sure, good afternoon there.
Yeah.
All right.
Wow, here we are.
Our good friends to the north.
We used to do this all the time, didn't we? And
I was thinking, so we went to a monthly schedule with live, what do we call it? Paul and Ashley Live?
Paul and Ashley Live. Yeah.
We went monthly, and I was like, it seems like 10 years ago since we've done this. So did we actually do this in July?
We did, yes.
Oh my God. It's been a long month. That's what I have to say about that.
Yet so short.
It's really, it's sort of dog days, although dog days refer to the tail end of summer, right? And July is really just like the heat and the heart of summer. Where we live, it gets very, very hot. We went to Santa Barbara, though, for 4 days, and that was like 4 days of hellscape in the Central Valley of California. We missed that, so that was nice.
Although it was fairly hot in Santa Barbara, too.
Well,
for Santa Barbara, it was very hot.
I think we misunderstood Santa Barbara weather. Santa Barbara is kind of Southern California.
It's hotter than Pismo or Morro Bay.
It's farther south, so it gets anyway. Yeah,
but still, I think people there were saying it was unseasonably hot in Santa Barbara when we were there. So
our daughter's asking me for her allowance. So
you're giving allowance to our daughter who is home visiting, and so we're excited. So yeah, let us know where you're joining from. Look at how fucking TikTok, used to, when we did lives and we would come on, we would instantly have, a bunch of people on, and now it just takes forever to get anybody on.
Yeah,
so fuck you, TikTok.
You know what? That's 2 F-bombs for you, and we're only like 3 minutes into this live. So
yeah, fucking TikTok.
3. I'm keeping track because
pisses me off. Hi, Pennsylvania. Katie's here from Pennsylvania.
Good morning and good afternoon.
Yeah, that would be afternoon for sure for Katie.
Yep. All right. Well, listen. Hey, if you're jumping on right now, let's break the TikTok algorithm. Can you hit the share arrow and like try to circulate
the share?
Because the puppeteers behind TikTok have a plot against us. So
they suck. Iowa's here. Jill is here from North Carolina on YouTube.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Good to see you, Jill.
So sorry, we will have to keep looking over here to see what our YouTube friends are doing. So.
Yeah. And I am glad you got in on the beginning as well, Katie. My glasses were a little bit stronger. I would for sure be able to read your name, Katie Keen 57.
Remember, that's YouTube, that's TikTok.
Yeah, I know. Bottom line is this. I will be cross-eyed on camera because I can't keep track of where I'm supposed to look. And it's also just so engaging to read people's comments. And so, like, my eyes go down because I like to...
Yeah, I always see you guys towards the end. Oh, the UK is with us.
Hello from the UK. Welcome.
Anna. Hi, Anna.
Thanks for joining us across the pond.
Hello. What does that say? Who is Candace?
Wendy.
Something Wendy?
Candace Ask Wendy.
Candace Ask Wendy. Oh, hi. Okay. Yeah, just keep letting us know where you're from and saying hello.
Yeah, so Paul and I decided we would do these like the first Saturday of every month because we were getting a little burned out. We did go live every Saturday for
months and months and months.
And it was kind of like our COVID relief package for ourselves was just to Come
I
on.
think it just helped us debrief.
That's what I was going to say. It helped us just to like feel like we were connected to people outside of the four walls of our house and our dog and our son, and just was a little reprieve from being so closed in. And the world's opening up a little bit again, and of course now we have the Delta variant, so we may be back sheltering in place here pretty soon. But in the meantime, we kind of got busy and got distracted, and we stopped going weekly. So now we're monthly, and we're glad you're here because it's the first Saturday of the month, and that's why you're seeing us and unplanned and uncoordinated. But because it's our entire wardrobe for the weekends, Paul and I are both wearing gray Fresno t-shirts.
Yes, this is our Saturday wear.
Literally the largest collection of like local Fresno swag. Fresno is where we're located. That I'm very proud of the collection. So, but yeah, if you this shirt looks probably pretty familiar because it's the only thing I wear on a weekend.
Yeah. So Jill says it was PNA Live that first introduced us to her. She's now in my coaching cohort, right? Nice. My current coaching cohort. Yes. New one starting in August if you want to join in. I was saying today, like so many of us read self-help books. We may read a Brene Brown or a Simon Sinek or a Patrick Lencioni book, and we're like, wow, that's really great. I'm so inspired by reading that book, and nothing changes in our life. Yeah. And if that's ever been your experience, try coaching. And I'm really good at it, by the way.
Let me say, because I get the benefit of living with
you Paul. Like sit in the other room and listen to
him. For one thing, I feel like I've been through your cohort 20 times because I do, although it's not the same. It's just like actually being in the cohort and having the dedicated time and support. But no, I get to download with you, a couple times a week or every day, and it's like, yeah, this is really good. Yeah, this is really life changing. And
so yeah, send me a DM if you'd like to try it.
Yeah.
Let's hit a couple of questions and then let's get to our content. So like somebody said, why do you use the two platforms for reach? So we would love just to go to YouTube because I've already dropped 3 F-bombs about TikTok today. But our reach on TikTok is farther and wider. So we do both. But YouTube is a better, we get to stream directly to YouTube. TikTok doesn't integrate with anybody. TikTok is TikTok, but we do both. So we get to reach both groups. And our thing keeps floating down here. Oops, I need 2 hands. Excuse me.
Yeah. This is our little like home studio. Which
it is what it is. Everybody has a home studio on TikTok.
You were pretty resourceful though. Like you have all these little gadgets and doodads that create this whole thing. So
yeah, I gave our patrons a tour of the studio this week, so they got to see.
Nice. Well,
so Jill says the cohort has really helped undo a lot of the chaos from COVID. So that's really cool.
Oh, that's a great comment, Jill. And a good time. And I feel like, okay, I'm middle-aged now, officially. Of course, that means I'm going to live to be 98. So maybe I'm past middle-aged, but with kind of being in the middle point in my life, have accomplished a lot professionally, but also still have many years ahead of me, hopefully. And then COVID and Trump and deconstruction and like the world is completely.
What was that word today. You said? Oh, Trump. That's right.
Yeah I know. Thankfully, I have not uttered that name in a little while, but anyway, I just feel like it's the Great Reset, and it's a 50 to 100 year-ish kind of moment. And if that doesn't drive you to evaluate your life and be like, things I've always thought about, I'm actually going to do, I'm going to deal with, etc. I think that's what your coaching helps people to do.
Yeah. So send me a DM and let's get you hooked up. It's really fun. And somebody said on here, please don't be like half the quote pastors on here. So I'm assuming that means that anybody who doesn't agree with the regular evangelical view is not a real pastor because you put the quotes. So it says so many progressive pastors from prosthetic something there.
Community?
Yeah, prosthetic community. Something.
Anywho, it's hard
Carol
to know.
Ann says, hey. All right.
Which half of the pastors this person may be referring to. So
well, let's just say that I dropped 3 F-bombs already so that'll tell you a little bit of something. It's the apocalypse, the lifting of the veil. No, I see. Yeah, no, it's not.
I think
You think so?
Well, I still don't know what this person's perspective may be. I resonate with the
You're echoing.
with the lift. I'll stay away from it. With the lifting of the veil, I think this is a moment where God is revealing a whole bunch of junk that's been in the trunk, and it's our time to say yes to him purging out a bunch of junk. So,
and we're going to talk some today. I think I have done a lot of study over the last few years, and I'm pretty convinced that the Western Christian church
we got a lot of stuff wrong.
Missed it. Missed it. We really created our own religion that looks very little like Jesus of the Bible.
Well,
so
we're going to get to that.
Yeah.
But I want to also answer, someone says, is this Mrs. Paul? The answer is yes. Paul and I are married. I am Ashley, and we're coming up on 27 years, August 12th, in fact. By the time you see us next, which will be, I suppose, the first Saturday in September, we will have celebrated our 27th wedding anniversary.
Yep, we will.
So
it's crazy. And Lacey's on. Lacey Bean is an awesome TikTok creator, and she was in my last coaching cohort.
Yeah,
so,
there's Lacey.
She's awesome.
There's Lacey.
Yeah.
All right.
Very good. So if you have a question, put it in the comments on YouTube or on TikTok. You can put it in the little question box at the bottom of the screen, and that helps us not to miss the questions as they're coming through. And we always love you to tell us where you're joining from. So, okay,
so we have a plan.
What are we talking about today?
I have notes. See?
Nice.
Official. We are prepared for this.
Are we echoing, though? I'm not sure how I even changed that. But
well, if I need to scoot away from a microphone, then
I don't know.
That might
just help. Let us know if we don't sound well.
All right. All right.
Again, TikTok doesn't let us monitor, so we have no idea. You're good here.
Okay, thank you.
Good.
Okay, so this is kind of what we wanted to do, is just reflect on the week and go back through. If you're hanging out with us here, it means that you're probably following Pastor Paul on TikTok or YouTube, or you've seen his content somewhere. And we wanted to just unpack a little bit the stuff that was on Paul's mind this week and that he pushed out there into the TikTok-verse, if that's a word.
TikTok-averse?
Yeah. So I wanted to start with a video that you posted early in the week, and it was happened to be a clip from this lady, Melissa Caroni, who we all met. I actually met her character when Cecily Strong played her for the first time on Saturday Night Live, following her testimony, I believe, in Arizona. She was I
think it was in Michigan.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay. I thought they kind of trotted her around to these different states. But anyway, it was a state legislature, Rudy Giuliani, orchestrated Republican state legislature hearing on alleged election fraud. And so she shows up, and she's the character that Cecily Strong.
Have you checked that report? Checked that report?
And they mock her as if she was drinking on during her testimony. So anyway, it's that particular lady who is now running for the state legislature of Michigan. Heads up to those of you who may live there. And, she's talking about the vaccine, that it is very clearly the mark of the beast, that the vaccine is made up of baby tissue. And I thought your comments were really interesting, that particularly your point about we hope as evangelical Christians, we yearn to be oppressed because then we use that as evidence, see, it's the end times.
Yeah.
And I thought maybe you could unpack for people a little bit more here, why you think the evangelical church is so focused on the end times, and what does it do to us, Yeah.
Do you want me to play the TikTok, or?
Sure.
Let's see if I can do that real quick. Yeah, because I think it's a very important issue. All right, so let me see.
Yeah, crystallize it for us here. Why do you think it's such an important issue?
Yeah, well, let me run the video here,
okay.
And then, so TikTok, share audio, and then you'll just be able to hear it on TikTok, not see it. So here it is.
This is an experimental
Okay, you guys got to hear this.
Vaccine that has aborted baby tissue.
Crazy conspiracy
This
theories.
right here.
A Christian woman running for state legislator.
This is solid evidence. We
in
are
the Republican
definitely
Party.
in the end times.
Hyper focused on end times.
Look at what they're doing in other countries. They're putting people in camps.
Crazy conspiracy theories.
What do people not understand here?
The hope of being oppressed.
I can't even believe it.
A
It is the
non-biblical
end
view of
times.
the
It's
end
in the
times.
Bible.
No, it doesn't say that. The mark of the beast
This
is
has
about
something
Nero
to do
and the Roman
with,
Empire.
I believe, the mark of the
Relearn
beast.
the Bible. You've been taught crazy stuff.
It is. I mean, there's every
You're
sign
nuts,
is there.
and this is scary, Christian.
This is an experiment.
Oh my God. WTF.
So, what is the deal with our focus on the end times? Why do we do that so much?
I truly believe the bottom line, we've been taught it. It's intriguing. We know something you don't.
Is it like the ultimate conspiracy theory?
It's the ultimate conspiracy theory. There's an
that's
antichrist coming. But I also believe it gives us a false hope that, like if you worship in an evangelical belief system, you're worshiping a harsh God who's holding you up to rules that are unattainable for a human being. And so so great shame is placed upon you on an ongoing basis. You looked at the wrong magazine, you thought the wrong word, you listened to the wrong music. When I was growing up, your hair was too long, your dress was too short, every rule. And so your life is shame-based, and the end time said, but it's going to be worth it. You see all those people that are having fun out there, they are going to burn in hell. They're going to be left behind. They're going to have 666 on their forehead, and I won't. So it gives us a false self-assuredness that, our life is shit because we live in this shame-based religious belief system, but someday we will get to laugh at those people that are having fun out there right now. They think they're having fun, but we are going to get the last laugh. And I think that is really the ultimate appeal of it, is we're going to win, you're going to lose, Jesus is going to come, and he's going to beat all of you up. My dad is bigger than your dad, kind of a thing. And it is exactly what the Pharisees believed. The Messiah was going to appear, and those Romans who thought they were so powerful, the Messiah was going to come and overthrow them, and we are going to be in charge. And I believe that is the impetus of end times beliefs today.
I think that's it. I think it's like the ultimate, see, we're right. Whatever is that thing that is like, it can manifest in so many different issues or areas of your life from little simple tiny things. But it's just ultimately that's like this big power struggle, like we're right and you're wrong, and that's the penultimate for, like, someday we will be vindicated and validated, it really is it's the heart of this misalignment with this vision of this shame-based punishing God,
Yeah. We all want to be on the winning team. And, I believe it's ultimately the story of the Israelites is the true story of the Bible, and the character of God is God saying to the Israelites, okay, now you're going to be my priest to the whole world. You're going to get to show the goodness of heaven to everybody. Isn't that amazing? And them saying, no, thanks. What we want is a God like our neighbors have. They pray to their God to kill their enemies, and we want to have a God that will kill our enemies. Yeah. And so, and God's saying to them, like, do you understand what you're saying? In that relationship, then I have to give you rules and punish you if you don't follow the rules. Yeah, I'll kill your enemies for you, but then you're going to have to follow these really harsh punishing rules. And so this idea of God being a lawgiver and a rule maker and forcing us to follow rules is a man-made concept then and a man-made concept today, when instead the story of the entire Bible and of Jesus is, if you all live for the common good of one another, love God, love your neighbor, love yourself, that's how you live together. That's how communities and cultures survive as a unit and in a mix of other cultures and communities. And so it's again, a complete misunderstanding and a human desire to, I want to have a God that's going to kill my enemies. And that means he's going to be really harsh to me too, but it's worth it because I want to win in the end.
Okay, I have to laugh. This is hilarious. This guy, Serotonin Dog, first of all says, Pastor Paul getting sturdy, and then Pastor Paul off the perks.
Off the perks?
So Apparently, you're very energized today.
Oh, okay.
Well, just so you know, serotonin dog, I have been keeping track of how many F-bombs Pastor Paul has already dropped in the last 20 minutes, and we're at 3, and now we're at 1 S-bomb. So yeah, maybe.
Oh, did I drop an S-bomb? Okay.
I'm keeping track. Which because I think it's funny. But yeah, I think, and also I think that when we're together, you like to get a little bit feistier.
Okay.
I think I'm your inspiration for that.
I think you are.
All right.
I think you bring the energy, and the energy flows
That's what
then
it is.
through what we're
That's
doing.
what it is.
So David says on YouTube, God does win in the end, but not because of anything about us. Undoubtedly, when the end comes, some or many parts of the church will be in disarray, but God is faithful even when we are unfaithful. All right.
Yeah.
Good thought.
That is a really good thought. And I'm also seeing his earlier comment about the veil is lifted. There are differences in what people think is behind the veil. That's perfectly said. That's exactly what I was trying to say earlier when I couldn't figure out if we were agreeing with the person who was commenting. It's like, yep, the veil's being lifted, but what are you saying? I don't know. What are you saying? Are you saying the mark of the beast, or are you saying the church being cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs?
And I think the win has already happened. The win is, the battle is over. The job now is, and the challenge of the life of Jesus is, understand what has been won, that freedom from rules and religion is the point. I think I'm skipping ahead on our points here.
Yeah, that's okay. Go ahead and finish your thought, and then we'll talk about that a little bit more.
That part of what we're going to talk about, this is my deconstruction journey, to use that word, is the idea that Jesus didn't come to create the religion of Christianity. That was not the point. That was what Paul wrote about. That's what some of the other apostles said, and we've taken it and run with that. But if you really read the story of Jesus, his whole goal was to break down religious division lines, racial division lines, and nationalistic lines that divide us. He wanted to break down all the barriers of division of race, religion, and nationality, and say, God says, I want to pour out my spirit on all flesh. I want everybody to know the goodness of heaven. So Jesus wasn't a Christian, and he didn't come to make people Christian. And that is the whole seed change of it all. And the victory that was won is the religious bondage is broken. The covenant of the Old Testament is fulfilled. That's why Jesus yelled, "It is finished," on the cross, and says, no more does religion get to reign in the world. And our job now is to tell the evangelical church, you've created a man-made religion that Jesus didn't intend to happen, and he wouldn't recognize it if he was walking around in the flesh today.
Yeah, you just said a whole lot.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of the ball of wax right there. And you were sharing with me last night that you just this week, you seem to have an unusual amount of pastors, more than normal, emailing or DMing you and just saying, hey, what do I do on this deconstruction journey? And kind of reaching out for coaching and support. And I don't know what it was about this week that more people happened to, that were pastors themselves. But I thought that was interesting. And I thought, I'm a little bit outside, I'm not talking about this every day. I'm not on the social media like you are, like hearing everybody's reaction. So I'm like a step out, one step in the deconstruction world and one step in just like normal life, living my life,
right?
Working stiff, going to work and all that, and trying to raise our family. But I wanted to hear from you. Like, we throw out a lot of concepts like deconstruction. Can you be a little more specific? Now, how many years in would you say to this deconstruction journey?
Well, it sort of started when I was in pastoral training. And so when was that? 2000?
Well, probably 2006, 2007, because we planted a church in 2008.
And even a little bit before that is kind of when I had stopped listening to Rush Limbaugh and started feeling like that was impacting my spiritual journey. But yeah, learning that there were Christian people who didn't believe in the rapture and didn't believe the end times the way I had always been. I thought every Christian believed the end times as a pre-trib millennialist, just like I did. And so yeah, that was what really started the journey of like, well, if I've been taught that and that's not true, what else do I believe? And then, stepping out of leading the pastorate of the church that we started, which was in 2008 on this weekend.
Yes, you guys, tomorrow is the anniversary. 2008, August 8, it was 888 when we had our first public service for the church that Paul and I planted.
The
Isn't that
river
crazy?
in Fresno, yeah.
So how many years ago was that? 18
18 was
20,
10.
21, 13 years ago.
13 years ago tomorrow. Yeah. And so when I stepped out of leading that church, it gave me freedom to really start to have my mind renewed and start to think of, okay, what does this look like today? And yeah, so things just started unraveling in the belief system, and they do pretty quickly. When you really start taking a critical look at the evangelical belief system, they start unraveling pretty quickly.
So that's a good way to put the time frame. So it's been for you easily a 15-year kind of process, but the last 3 years have been really accelerated after serving as a senior pastor in a charismatic evangelical church, and then stepping out for the last 3 years.
Yeah.
So, all right. So that's for you, kind of how you mark your timeline. Can you nail down now, like, what have you deconstructed from? Like, what are the concrete things that you would say, I now see this differently, and that's a result of this deconstruction? And I actually have your answer right here if you want to.
I think I'm going to go to the second one first.
Okay.
It is like, who is God that you're taught for in evangelical-ish living, what am I trying to say? Evangelical living. You're taught that God is this patriarchal father of the Judeo-Christian Bible, and any other view of God is heretical. Like any other view of who God is. And even if I study the Judeo-Christian scripture, I start to see that God is saying, I will present myself in the way you need to see me, but that is not the whole of who I am. And I see somebody saying there that God doesn't exist, and that's fine. You can have that belief system, but I think that is just as religious a statement as to say the evangelical belief that they know exactly who God is, because you can't prove there is no God. I think there is something bigger than the universe. But if you believe that, that's fine. I'm not here to try to change that belief. And that's part of what I'm saying, that if God is different than, and God is willing to present as what it needs to be presented to somebody to feel safe and feel encouraged by interacting with the divine, then that starts to break down the second point of what I believe, that as an evangelical, you believe we have the only right belief system in all the world. And our job is to evangelize to that belief system. We need to convince people that they are sinners and come into our belief system. So my vision of God changed, of who God is. And God is not this little thing we can put in a box and explain as evangelicals, or explain in a book. That is a version of who God is and what God looks like. And secondly is, I don't have to evangelize people to my belief system. I don't have to convince them they're wrong and I'm right and they need to come into my belief system. So those were the two big breakdowns. And then it's like, okay, so how does the story of Jesus, if I don't have to convert people to Christianity in the middle of this, then what was the story of Jesus about? And I believe the story of Jesus is an amazing story. And I have people who say there's no proof outside of the Bible that Jesus existed, or very scant proof. You have to try to, and I'm fine with that. If Jesus never existed, I'm not going to have that argument with you if you believe that. But the story is still incredible. I believe he was a real guy. I believe people's lives were changed because of their interaction with Jesus. But whether you believe that or not is okay. But here's the thing. It was an incredible story of, if people are getting really disruptive, please mute them. I've muted a few myself. That if you're just being ridiculous to try to disrupt people, please don't let people be disrupted or made unsafe by silly people who can't handle the freedom to comment.
I'm really appreciating the technical tip we're receiving from,
which is what?
Just me being me, you be you, mirror mode. Tap the three dots and click on mirror, a way to go live so that you don't have like print reversed or whatever. So,
Oh,
yeah, thanks for making that,
how do we do that? Mirror your video?
making that tip.
Oh, look at that.
Okay, like literally just blew my mind because now I'm looking at a totally different side of my head, and
Yeah. Now we're really so point 3, the story of Jesus, whether you believe he was a real man or not, I'm not going to argue that with you. Whether you believe he raised from the dead or not, fine. But Jesus as a representation of the character of God and how we live once we understand that true character of God is an incredible story, a world-changing story. And so my view of Jesus as being Christian means to be Christ-like, to be a little version of Christ. And so I believe Christian means I need to live life the way Jesus lived life, which is I'm going to break down barriers. I'm not going to let racism or nationalism or religious exclusivity stop me from loving and valuing everybody around me in the world. The only people Jesus didn't seem to value were religious people who brought religious, racial, and nationalistic division. And he had really bad things to say about them. But the foreigners, the people of different belief systems, the tax collectors who were traitors to their people, he sat and had lunch with them and loved on them and told them they were good and valuable. And so those are the 3 changes. Just the divisiveness and exclusiveness of my belief system begin to change, and I begin to be able to love people, which is what I always wanted to do.
So just to recap, so number 1, God is bigger than the God of the Judeo-Christian Bible.
Yep.
Okay. Number 2, you've stopped believing that your job is to convert people to the Judeo-Christian version of God.
Correct.
Right. And then number 3, how we look at the Bible and Jesus, the story of Jesus, the person of Jesus, that Jesus didn't come to create another set of rules and religion and chains of religion. We did that. Like we in trying to model his life or whatever, in the centuries that have since passed, we put all that stuff back on. And you're saying, no, Jesus is the expression of God that says, we don't need those rules, like that's who God is. So he totally reshaped and reformed the view of God at the time. Right.
Yeah.
And so those are kind of your 3 nuggets. And I'm curious if those of you who are listening and have been going through deconstruction yourself, if that resonates, if there are other points that you're that you would add to that, or like maybe just share a little bit about your experience if something is different from what you've just shared.
Yeah, I think it's interesting when people come on and say, well, there is no God. I'm like, fine, if that's your belief. I'm not speaking to you. I'm not trying. It's not that I'm not speaking to you. I'm not trying to convert you to believe in God. I think it's impossible to say there is no God. That is a religious statement in and of itself. That is a faith-filled statement to say there is no God. The universe is expanding. It's expanding into something. There is something bigger than the universe. Who knows what that is? I think there's something divine, and I've seen too many incredible things to think there's not something of the supernatural and mystical, and you can believe whatever you want to about it, but I'm not here to try to convert you to my religion anymore. I'm here to say, how do we live self-sacrificially for one another and for the common good so that we have welfare in our cities, which is the ongoing, never-ending command of the Bible.
Yeah, and I think for me, like where just practically kind of where I hold these thoughts is like, perfect. I mean, God is the source of perfect love.
Yeah.
And, I think about what it would look like for me to attempt to perfectly love friends, family, neighbors, enemies, that kind of stuff. And, it's like I find myself, instead of praying for kind of specific things like, oh God, please let this happen, or oh God, please let that happen, I find myself in prayer time more just really yearning for that expression of God's perfect love to encounter those situations that are on my mind or things that are heavy on my heart. So yeah, I think that's kind of a practice that I'm sensing is a little bit different for me in this season of my life.
Yeah, the Christian Bible says God is love, and everyone who loves knows God. And if you don't love, you don't know God. I mean, it's a pretty simple concept. And the religious guys around Jesus didn't love. They put rules and bondage, and they lived in smug self-righteousness. And Jesus said, when you get to whatever eternity looks like, the answer is going to be, I never knew you. I never knew you. And so this idea of God is love, and I have Christian friends who are like, oh, you just want this touchy-feely loving God. And I think loving people is one of the hardest things to do in the world. Oh, you're going the easy route to just this loving God. Like saying I'm right and you're wrong is like the easiest thing in the world. I get to be smugly self-righteous, but to say like I have to love people who disagree with me, who look different than me, that's hard. And that's the command of the Bible, is to love the people you don't think worthy of God's love. That's the note of whether you're following God or not.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Brody the dog says the God of the Bible is not loving at all, though. Well, I think that's because the way it's been taught and expressed to you, you know, it's actually a different, we see it very differently.
Well, and that's another point of what has changed in my deconstruction, is how we see, understand, and interact with the Bible. That the Bible was written by human beings from a human perspective, a group of people that wanted to have a God that destroyed their enemies. And so when they committed genocide, they would say, God told us to do that, as an explanation for why they did it. And I think maybe they were calling it an act of God when in fact it was an act of human beings. And there's and I do also think God works covenantally with generations, and was working out of that covenant. But that's not when Jesus came. The story of Jesus is, you're acting the way you act because you don't understand the character of the nature of this loving force that is God over the universe. And if you truly understand it, you won't kill your neighbor. You won't commit. Not only will you not commit murder, he said, you won't call people fools. Not only will you not be pro-abortion, you won't call people baby killers when they do it, because the command of love is a much higher standard than the rules of human beings in Christianity.
So if you're just joining us, first of all, I really respect that you want to jump on a Saturday and talk about like the questions of the universe and all this intense big stuff that Pastor Paul's always talking about. But thanks for spending a little bit of time with us this morning. And we're just kind of going back and reflecting on the week and looking at some of the content that Paul posted and kind of trying to tie it all together and digest it a little bit together. So we've moved through a couple things so far. First of all, we talked about your video that you posted with Melissa Caroni, and kind of the hyper focus on the end times, and, you know, really sort of what is that in the evangelical Christian world, that we always want to be in the end times. We always want to be the oppressed. And anyway, we spent some time on that. You talked about your own journey of deconstruction and what has specifically changed for you, instead of just throwing out global words like I'm deconstructing. Like, okay, so what does that mean? I tend to be kind of the practical person in the conversation in our household.
And that you mentioned, I got hit up by several pastors just this week who were like, oh man, what do I do now? The earth is moving under my feet.
And so it's not uncommon for, I mean, you chat with people all over the world, all over the time, that are dealing with deconstruction. It's a little more unusual for you to have pastors so consistently reaching out, you know, and looking for support and guidance. So that was an interesting update from the week. But the third thing, I kind of want to bring it down to just like, again, a little more practical topic. You posted a podcast this week with Jay Wilkinson, and the topic was Caring Capitalism. He's with the Do More Good movement.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't listened to it yet. You've encouraged me that like I really need to listen.
Yeah, you need to hear this one.
This makes me excited to think about reforming the economy and reforming motivations and interests, and like expanding the purpose of business to include purpose, social purpose, as well as sustainability, financial and otherwise. But say more about what you guys talked about. And
I have a clip.
Okay.
All right. So first, let me play the clip.
some very specific text and research that's been done in business circles around understanding that companies that pursue a path to purpose in their business are more profitable. Businesses that don't understand that they need to evolve the way that they do business to take into account all of the people that are part of their ecosystem. My personal opinion is they won't be around. They're not even going to survive 5 to 8 years because no one will go to want to work for them.
Strong finish there.
Yeah. So Jay Wilkinson of the Do More Good movement, an entrepreneur, successful business person, had grew up with a basic evangelical background, had encounter with a religious person from another religion and began to realize, hey, they have something good in their heart as well, and begin to explore sort of what that goodness looks like, and started this idea of reclaiming capitalism for good. And then if you hear the podcast, he'll go on to talk about how then when Donald Trump came around and he saw people falling into the trap of chasing after whatever caused them to go after Donald Trump, that he's become even more doubling down on this idea that capitalism is good, but only if it's willing to care about the culture in which it thrives. And that the idea that into the next generation, he said in 5 years, which is a really bold prediction, that any business that's not willing to take care of its employees, take care of culture, is going to cease to exist because people won't work for them anymore. And to some degree, we're seeing that now. And there's this whole boomer like, see, nobody wants to work because they're all lazy. And I think some people are saying, I'm not going to work for a company that doesn't care about me as a human being. And at some point, I think we should all say, I'm not going to patronize a company that doesn't care about human beings. And we can make capitalism to start to impact. And this is really your space a lot more than mine, of how do we make capitalism be good stewards. I think stewardship is a word we heard kind of early on in this journey for us. And how do we make capitalism a business of stewardship that understands its profit needs to benefit the community around it?
Well, so I don't know the answers to that, but I think the pursuit is so exciting and compelling. And I think it's a generational shift.
Yeah.
And we have plenty of evidence from the last, 50 to 100 years that there's more to life, there's more to business, there's more to success, there's more to thriving than what has been narrowly defined for private businesses, for a long time now. And I just love it. I think it's encapsulated in excellence, and that for me. So, I when I was a kid, I always knew I wanted to go into business. I have undergraduate and graduate degrees in business, and from my earliest days of knocking on doors and selling Girl Scout cookies to today, the work I do in economic development, which is working with whole industries and communities to try to figure out like how do we create excellence and livability in cities and communities, and like. I love the pursuit of excellence, and the business sector brings that to community issues, community challenges. We can't solve our community problems without including the business sector. But at the same time, I think business and industry is being called to walk away from this idea that if everything's good for them, then it's just going to follow that everything's good for people and communities as well. That's not been proven to be true. I have had some very confronting conversations with business leaders like over the years. I've been doing this for more than 2 decades now. Most recently, I was with an industry group in kind of a statewide thing here in California. And I just told them, like, look, y'all got to stop walking in the room and saying to lawmakers and community leaders and policy makers that if things go well for business, they will therefore go well for the community, the county, the region, the state, the nation. That's not the whole truth. And if you want to stop the government from telling you what to do, then you better jump in and be a part of solving some of the very big problems that are in society today, and also that are direct results of your operations. So, get there first before a legislator who may not have enough insight or experience to really solve the problem, tries to solve it for you. So I think that's a mandate. I think it is an exciting thing to pursue as a business or industry leader. And I followed Jay's point of view. Like, whoever gets there first is going to prove the concept for other people and probably experience the reward as well.
So if capitalism doesn't make it self-caring, then we need mandates from government to get it there.
Yeah, the mandates fill the vacuum and the void that is not otherwise filled by private actors, whether they be business or community or nonprofits or whatever. So, and
then the conservative belief is all regulation is bad.
Yeah,
and it's true. All regulation is bad until it keeps my neighbor from putting a toxic waste dump and totally devaluing my property. Taking my $300,000 home and making it worthless in a moment.
Listen,
so suddenly regulation is not so bad.
Listen now, don't call out my hypocrisy. Let me pet my hypocrisy, please.
And government is bad unless it passes a law to ban abortion and keep people from voting. Otherwise, government is always bad. So yes, it's very hypocritical.
Well, I think, and I'm seeing the comment about you can't have capitalism without exploitation. I think that's the pursuit, is to figure out how do you have a successful, effective private sector, again, not just for profit, but nonprofit and community, et cetera, that actually is not extractive, but is renewing, and that creates hope and vibrancy, and does so in a way that benefits, people and communities. It's got to, like, what is our choice? To just be like, oh, forget it. We're just going to sit in our mess and stew. Like, we got to try to figure this out.
Probably disappointing to some of my deconstructionist progressive friends. I don't fully agree with the statement that Jesus was socialist or the early church was communist. Most of Jesus' parables, the reward was profit. In the parable of the talents or the parable of the minas, the profit brought reward. The story of Ruth, Boaz was an extremely wealthy farmer, extremely wealthy businessman. And he was lauded in the Bible for his generosity, that he left the edges of his field unharvested so that the foreigners and the widows and those that didn't have the ability to work and own could be taken care of. And the rules were, when the gleaners were doing their gleaning, everything they dropped they had to leave on the ground, again, for the foreigners and the poor people that couldn't work. So I don't think the Bible is a communist manifesto. I don't think Jesus was spouting communist ideals.
I agree. And I would just say, I feel like slapping that label on Jesus is yet one more religious attempt.
Right.
It just happens to be coming from, a political, philosophical sort of angle, but it's still religious to just be like, oh, Jesus was this, Anyway, so
it's the opposite response to that conservative, Ronald Reagan saying, government, it doesn't solve the problem. Government is the problem. That is a definitive statement. That's not the truth. And so then the opposite response is throw out everything of government, throw out everything of capitalism. God is a communist, or Jesus is a communist, is just the opposite end, or the other side of the same coin. We need to live in the tension that capitalism has taken a lot of people out of poverty and a lot of the world out of poverty. And at the same time, then it has exploited a lot of people. And without us coming to agreements for the common good of the culture, and government is our mechanism to do that, we will see Standard Oil owning 82% of the world's oil distribution and ripping everybody off because of it.
By the way, I really appreciate Therapies' comment that Jesus didn't condemn wealth, but he acknowledged there's responsibility with it. I want to throw out there, I'm listening on Audible right now to a great book called The Heart of Business. And there's a lot of good comments about purpose. What is the purpose of business? And I think that's what Jay on your podcast is teasing out, that if the purpose is just simply one bottom line, financial bottom line, then you get what we have today. And that it is up to leaders in the private sector, again, not just for profit, but private sector, meaning non-governmental, to say, hey, there might be something better. There is something better out there. Let's push ourselves to find it. To me, that's the pursuit of excellence. And excellence, when pursued in an honest and integrity-filled way, is it is transforming. It does raise and lift up people in communities, and it sets a new standard for the other sectors. So I would recommend that book. I'm almost the way, but in the book, it talks about how, and this was the former CEO of Best Buy. And really, he was on a journey. It sounds a lot like kind of our Christian deconstruction journey, although he's not explicitly talking about Christianity. But like for him, like moving away from the deconstruction of pure profit as motive to giving people purpose and like helping people find their purpose and like instilling that in their employees, and then watching that purpose be what has driven the transformation of their business. Like, that's super cool. I don't know. We cannot throw the towel in on successful private enterprise. And also we have got to challenge ourselves in private enterprise to lead and not be dragged into this space, because I think Jay is really onto something, that we won't have private enterprise anymore if we don't take the leadership role. One
of the things I'm very confrontive of evangelicalism about is taking one Bible verse and making a theology out of it. And I hear some of my friends in the progressive space saying, well, Jesus said, sell everything and give all you have to the poor. Actually, he only said that one time to one person, and I think for a specific reason. To Zacchaeus, we don't see him saying anything about Zacchaeus giving away all his money. Zacchaeus says, I'm going to pay back anybody I've ripped off double what I ripped off from them. Zacchaeus didn't say, I'm going to sell everything and give all away to the poor. He said, I'm going to make things right. So again, let's not create another theology in the opposite direction out of one verse any more than go and sin no more can be made of an overarching theology for others. But one of the things that's important in this, I think, that I would ask you about is haven't we learned that the real problem in a capitalist economy is that division between the wealthy and the poor, and that when that gets to be extravagantly large, that's when economies kind of get out of whack and maybe ultimately collapse? Or is that true?
Yeah, I mean, that's I'm not an economist. I'm not a historical economist. I'm not a financial expert. I'm really just a practitioner in economic development, and have been so for the last couple of decades. So, I encounter a lot of theory and a lot of data and that sort of thing. But that seems to be clearly what the data suggests, and that we're living in this massive, massive, massive time of inequality. And it's not socialistic or communistic to say, as a private actor, that's a concern. I come to the table understanding the impact of inequity and want to be a party to reevaluating and rethinking how we got where we are and how we change things. So anyway, I don't know. I just think it's a real, somehow it's like when I stop and think about all the different stuff that you talk about, and even when we roll in here on, monthly live like this, what is the connecting thread to all these dots? It's all related. But it almost just seems sometimes so big. We're talking about deconstructing evangelicalism and the sort of modern Western Christian church. We're talking about,
by the way, Ireland is somebody's with us from Ireland. How cool is that?
Wow. Well, welcome.
Yeah.
The like kind of the same, like deconstructing capitalism. I mean, these are big, epic things. And it really, to me, just points to the very earliest comments that we had from many of you at the top of this hour, which was like, yeah, the veil's being lifted. That's kind of the way I see it. Like we're living in this time of change, and wow, in a sense, what a privilege and also responsibility to be alive right now and to try to represent the heart of God for people and communities. And be a part of reshaping things for the future. I think that's ultimately, the thread that ties these topics together.
Yeah, and the real demand of the Bible isn't don't sin. It's don't harden your heart. Hebrews says, don't harden your heart as your fathers did in the desert. And to me, a hardened heart comes when no matter where we are on the spectrum, we become convinced I have all truth, and all truth has to come through my belief system. But when this arm keeps moving on me, but when we're able to live in the tension of love your neighbor as yourself, that means like we all have to come together and say what works for the common good. And that may mean you bring some of the truth and they bring some of the truth and we bring some of the truth. And when we all get together and can live in the nuance of that tension, that really good stuff can happen. And
nuance is not a bad word, by the way. We could try to coin that right here on Paul and Ashley Live.
It takes a humble heart to be able to say, maybe I don't have all the answers.
Yeah.
Maybe I should hear something you have to say in this.
Well, I think if that's really what it comes down to for me, is that as I'm inspired by and so radically impacted by what I read about Jesus in the Bible and the way, like, my God, he just completely confronts the power systems of his day and everything that was held sacred that was not reflecting the true character of God. It's like he turned it upside down without regard for who he was offending or whatever. And then he, died this total sacrificial death. So when I think about being a Christian, I don't know why I'm getting emotional on this, but when I think about carrying the heart of God for people, it makes me think, how do we position ourselves to live and to love sacrificially with one another? And that happens, it doesn't happen in the church. That happens in community, that happens in society. And so those of us who have been raised to believe like, oh, we got to take our Christian faith into the marketplace. What I'm learning is that has nothing to do with like, make sure that Christian people are in charge of stuff. That's gotten us to where we are today. Instead, what it means for me is the essence of Jesus in the marketplace challenges me to make sacrifices for people, whether I'm a private enterprise and I'm thinking about, a new business that makes a triple bottom line impact and creates opportunity for people in my community, or I'm a nonprofit leader, or I'm a church leader, or whatever, a governmental leader. It's, to me, that's what it's all about, is how do you hear people you can't normally hear? How do you hear their hearts? How do you love them? How do you solve problems for the collective whole? I think that's what we are called to be. If we are trying to carry out a commission of God's love, I think that's what it is,
Yeah, our friend Brian just sent us a text there I saw pop up, and he was talking about biblical capitalism. I like that term. You're like, what is biblical capitalism? That fits into the pray for the welfare of your community, for in its welfare you will find your welfare.
Okay. I've seen so many like Christian-led businesses that think biblical capitalism means they pray at the beginning of the day, or they pray in staff meetings
and give donations to anti-abortion groups.
Yeah, and it's really, really kind of ridiculous. That to me would be religion. How do we do religion in business?
That's religious capitalism.
That's lit.
Jesus,
thank you.
Following capitalism is caring about your employees, and caring about the people you serve, and caring about the community and culture in which you exist. And how do we benefit all of those stakeholders rather than just your stockholders? Ooh, I like that.
Boom.
Stakeholders,
not just
stockholders. And you can, you have a fiduciary duty to your stockholders.
Yeah, but
you need to convince them that it's important to serve all your stakeholders.
And that's if your commitment up front to your stockholders is, look, we're not just about you. We believe in I know so many people have modeled this, and B Corp is an expression of this, and like doing well by doing good. Like, this isn't a new concept. We're seeing this, hovering around for the last couple decades, if not longer. But I just think it's becoming more of a mandate,
Yeah.
And I do think that's the generational shift.
Because we're actually reading the Bible and saying, you know what, this is what the Bible actually says.
Yeah.
And I saw somebody who's like, oh, Jesus died for our sins. That is coming from a very thin, myopic evangelical viewpoint that's not understanding the full story of Jesus and not the full story of the Bible.
Someday, maybe next month, we'll talk about a really cool project we're doing in the Fresno area that is putting these concepts into action and like actually trying to blaze a trail of like, okay, if these are the concepts we believe, like we want our economy to work for the residents of our community and we don't feel like it is today, what do we do about it? Like, instead of just sitting around and, throwing stones at each other and saying, you're doing it wrong or you're doing it wrong, like, what do we do differently? And so we've got something underway. I want it to be farther along before I talk to you guys about it, but it's kind of exciting.
Yeah.
Hey, so we have been chatting for an hour and 5 minutes now.
All right.
And we've had many, many, many just awesome folks popping on and sticking with us and asking good questions. We've had some lovely little trolls with us this morning.
We've had to mute a lot of people that can't handle the responsibility of freedom to comment.
I always feel like, you're over the target when you're drawing fire. So thank you, trolls, for affirming that we are talking about the right stuff, because you wouldn't be showing up and pecking away if we weren't. So
some trolls are harmful and some are just silly. So mostly we've just had silly trolls today.
Yeah.
We did have a couple of questions. Does anybody have a question before we go? Rebecca Therapies asked, is Revelation a poetic book, not literal? I believe Revelation is written in code. John, who we believe wrote it, or narrated it to somebody who wrote it down later, was a prisoner of Emperor Nero on the Isle of Patmos, and he was pissed off. And so he wrote, just, how, like, what are the Mother Goose? Mother Goose rhymes?
Nursery rhymes.
Nursery rhymes that we used to read as a kid and think, oh, those are so cute little rhymes. Our dog Pudgy joining in. They weren't cute little poems. They were revolutionary middle fingers at the king. Did you know that? Like, Humpty Dumpty is the king falling off the wall.
I think the king knew it at the time too, don't you?
Well, apparently it was the way they got away with doing theater.
It was code.
And so John is writing about his hatred and belief that Nero will fall and the Roman Empire will fall. And so he's writing in code. And so he says, oh, and the number will be 666, which happened to be the number of Nero at the time, which was the number on the money. And if you don't follow 666, you're not going to be able to buy and sell. He was writing in code about what was happening in the day. He was not writing about something that's going to happen in the future. You can argue that maybe parts of it are, but much of what we read in Revelation happened at the fall of the Roman Empire and the end of Nero as Caesar. And that's what John was writing about. Matthew 24, which we also use as an apocalyptic prophetic chapter, was writing about Jerusalem's destruction in AD 70. And the book of Matthew was written in 85 AD. So it's written after Jerusalem was destroyed and written for Jesus, making a description of what was going to happen to Jerusalem. These are not things coming in the future. They're in the past. You're giving me the rat symbol.
Yes, I am. I did it under the camera, though. So no one else was to know except for you. Just aired it.
Okay.
Anyway, hey, I saw someone ask the question. Do you have a website where more of your ideas, this person can come and interact with? And that is a great question. The answer is yes, pastor-paul.com. But the answer is also, it's not a great website right now. I mean, it's what we could put together and all that. But we are in the middle of a rebrand and a redesign of Paul's web platform. We want to make the things that he's doing every day, every week, every month more available and more accessible for people, including his coaching. He's got a cohort coming up. If you're interested in a curriculum that Paul wrote and spending time coaching with Paul, you can check out the website, pastor-paul.com. But we're kind of trying to fundraise for this website. All this stuff that we do, we do on the sides of our desks and lives. And, it's our little startup activity here in our home living room. So you can go to Patreon, you can go to Venmo. If you want to support Paul monthly, there are options to do that. You can pay up front. That'll help with a rebuild of the website. It's going to be really terrific. We're working with the local business here in Fresno, super talented lady that's helping us redesign. You can also go to Venmo if you want to make a donation one time, or if you want to make a series of donations. Our overall fundraising goal, remind me, Paul, is
$20,000.
$20,000.
And we've already put in 8 ourselves.
Yep. So we got, and then we had some fantastic donations come in the other day, $1,700.
Yeah, $1,700
So,
gift came in.
you know, we're almost to the halfway point of the money that we're trying to raise to get this done and get this relaunched. So if this is for you, that's great. If it's not, that's totally okay too.
My Venmo is at Paul-Swearingen-1. I think you can get that on the pastor-paul.com website. If you have any questions about any of that, just send me a direct message, send me an email, and we'll figure out how to make it work.
So go check it out. And we do have a monthly subscription. If you sign up monthly, then you get really cool things like weekly Bible teachings from Paul. Like, part of what we want to do is
I did one this morning.
A sense of community. Like if you're like, I've never been into church, or I don't really feel like I can go back to my evangelical church ever since Trumpism hit it. What do I do to have still edification and, you know, ways to continue to explore God? Well, this is the best preacher I've ever heard in my life. And he preaches now, but through a different lens, through his weekly Bible talk posts, and those are available only to our monthly subscribers. So that might be an incentive. You can also get a copy of his book for signing up monthly as well. So is that a good pitch? Am I done?
Good
pitching?
pitch. Yeah.
Okay.
Just we need your help, and we don't do traditional sort of mission asks. We say, hey, subscribe and become a part of helping spread the message that God's not Republican and he's not mad at the world.
And
he may not even be a he.
Thank you for asking the question. What's your mission statement and primary goal? The mission statement of pastor-paul.com is to pursue spiritual health in uncommon ways. So
spiritual life, I think it is, but I like health too.
Okay, let's do that. To pursue spiritual life in uncommon ways.
Yeah.
So we're in the process of making that really cohesive and easily accessible for folks. Our primary goal is that people would know the love of God and not know the love of God through the crazy, ridiculous filter of religion and politics that the church tends to walk in today. And we know that when that happens, your life changes. And when lives change, communities change, societies are transformed. So it is no small goal for us here at pastor-paul.com.
By the way, somebody's asking me to explain Mark 18:16. There is no such verse in the Bible. Mark only has 16 chapters.
So there's the explanation.
Yeah.
You can DM if there's a different verse you were wanting to get insight on.
Yeah. And don't forget, if you want to be a part of the coaching cohort, it's going to be so good. I want you to join. Send me a message.
Yeah.
Is that all we're doing today?
I think that's it. We're at our time, and you guys have been so great to tune in with us. And we will post this video also on YouTube. So be sure to go on YouTube and follow just search Pastor Paul on
Paul TikTok on
Pastor
YouTube.
Paul TikTok on YouTube.
Yeah.
And that's a great way to support us as well. So
Jill says Pudgy is getting a cameo today.
Oh, there he is. There he is.
Not on TikTok, but on YouTube. He's
Okay.
getting
Well, there's a
cameo.
reason to log on Saturday mornings.
Yeah, you made a good point. If you just joined in the middle and you would like to hear the whole thing, it is preserved on the YouTube channel. So go see it there.
All right, you guys, have a great weekend and a great month. We'll see you back here in a month, but be sure to check out Paul's stuff on social media website, and you can see him all the time. He's got tons of good stuff going on.
Thanks for hanging out with us. Bye, YouTube.
Bye, everyone.